Welcome to Holistically Speaking. I'm Hilary Russo, certified holistic health coach and health and wellness journalist. This is an empowering place to explore self-awareness, self-love, and transformation through health, healing, and humor. By sharing life-changing experiences, knowledge, and guests with varied expertise, we'll explore who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm glad you're here. I heard from a lot of you this last week about how you share gratitude with others. And my question was, do you prefer to tell someone or write it in a note or maybe give a gift to someone to say thank you? The beauty of all three is that any of these responses and even more are all perfect in their own right. Chris Palmore chose the written path. It's what kick-started his journey with GratitudeSpace. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to our conversation on his podcast, GratitudeSpace Radio, I encourage you to give it a listen because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about this week. Gratitude and loss can really be a gain. What we learn from our losses in our lives can be an awareness to aligning ourselves to something truly beautiful if we just allow it to happen. And when Chris lost his mother to breast cancer, a new spirit awakened, a door opened, and so did his heart. Prepare to be embraced in gratitude, my loves, on this week's Holistically Speaking. Chris, it is such a delight to have you here today. I am so grateful to hold space for you here today on Holistically Speaking. I had a chance to be on your podcast, GratitudeSpace Radio, and in gratitude, I wanted to return the favor. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, Hilary. Thank you. You've ever since I've met you, every time I've interacted with you, it's been a very positive experience. I really do appreciate how much you care for people and how you want to help people in collaboration and just I remember the first time we talked and you were like, how can I assist you in your mission? You were just you've got such a giving heart, and I'm just letting you know I really appreciate it and notice it.
Well, the feeling is definitely mutual. What is it they say? Let your vibe attract your tribe, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be around people that just want to, they understand missions and they just freely say, how can I help you? It's to hear that from anybody, right? It's such a beautiful thing.
It really is. And that's what brings us to moments of gratitude. So you have this phenomenal portal called GratitudeSpace and also GratitudeSpace Radio, and everything in your life revolves around gratitude. And that seems like a pretty big task. Even though it's quite easy to be in gratitude, it is still a practice, especially if you're in a negative frame of mind or something happens in your life that's not positive. And you've had something like that happen. Here we are in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and your mother lost her battle with breast cancer. And during that time, you have your own story of trauma to triumph and how you came out of this with ultimate gratitude, this beautiful story. And I would love for you to share that with listeners.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at, because you went through all that, I was kind of going through my emotions in my head, and I'm looking at a picture of my mother that, from when we were in Mexico back in 2000, and I think it was 10. And so my mother in 2013, she'd been in remission from cancer, I would say close to a decade. And I'd always thought of my mom as like a superwoman, and she was a superwoman, and she just really was disciplined and taking care of herself, and just active and full of life and ever present. And in 2013, the fall of 2013, my birthday was coming up, and I was listening to a podcast. This idea came from a podcast. I was listening to the Adam Carolla show, and he was talking about how birthdays are essentially like appreciation trophies, and that everyone gets one. It's really, it's if everyone gets one, where's how is that special? And it kind of resonated with me, that idea and that thought, putting appreciation trophies next to birthdays. So I decided, I wanted to do something on my birthday this coming year that was going to, take it out of that realm. Corolla would talk about either you can make it about, he's basically like, make it about something else. You can celebrate the day, but make it about something else. That was his generalization. He was saying it could be that you achieved something this past year, or it could be about something else. So I took that idea and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to make it about my mother. I didn't know what I was going to do, but that was the thought in my head. I was like, well, I'm going to do something for my mother. So, December 30th of 2013, I got up really early, which, even thinking about today, I got up at 3 this morning. I probably got up at 4. I don't know. It was early. It wasn't as early as today. And I sat down and I just basically wrote her out a self-actualization gratitude letter. So, I wrote this letter and I decided I was going to put it on Facebook, and because I wanted her to find it. I wanted it to be public, and I wanted her to find it. I wanted it to be a surprise. I think if you have an opportunity to surprise somebody, what a gift that you get to be able to do that, honestly, because that stuff, surprising people, is a beautiful thing that rarely ever happens. So I put it on Facebook, and I pressed post, and I went about my morning, my routine. And, mid-morning came around and I didn't get my phone call. I usually get a phone call from my parents in the morning, they sing happy birthday to me. And I didn't get my phone call. So I let a little more time go by, and I decided I was going to call my dad. So I called my dad's cell phone because I was still sitting there going, I don't want to talk to mom, until she at least gets the surprise, So I called my dad. He answered the phone, and he said happy birthday, and I immediately pivoted to, had mom read the letter, and he said that she had, and he said that she couldn't talk to me right now, is what he said. And that really, that moment of having that, him telling me that, is still, even saying it to this day, really is a baffling experience, because to give a little backstory, my mother and I, very close, talk every day. At an early age, I had no problem showing her affection in public. I'm sure I talked to her the day before we would see each other. So this isn't like some estranged person. So him saying, she can't speak to you right now. She needs time to digest, she needs time with this, really affected me in a massive way that I never expected. It was just a byproduct. It's just what happened, because if I would have set out to do that, I could have never have done that. It was just a byproduct of what I did, just of speaking from the heart, and then allowing her to find that, and it being her own thing, in that moment. If you share love with somebody, it's a beautiful thing, and it could be between the two of you. But if you make that a public thing, it's got wings at that point. It can breathe, and people can touch up against it, and they can feel it, and they can experience it. And people that love this person and get, my mom, a lot of people love my mother. My dad had his own experience with the letter. My sister had her own experience with the letter. All these people have these experiences, which are really powerful. So, that was December 30th of 2013. And I didn't know that, obviously I didn't know that we were basically, it was the calm before the storm, and that, 4 months a day later that she'd be gone.
Oh, I'm sorry that you went through that. It's difficult to see the people we love go through any moments of pain, and especially someone you're so close to. So I appreciate you sharing that story with me, with our listeners.
It was about a week before she passed away that we were in, she'd been, like I said, she was swollen up so that she had to go into the hospital, and they had to drain her. And Dr. Williams basically sat down to tell all of us that were in the room with my mom, holding my mom's hand. And he was basically telling her that medically they can't do anything else, and he said something so beautiful, and
I'm happy I can share it here because it's just such a beautiful thing. He said, and he loved my mom, right? He loved her so much. He said, to quote Monty Python, he said, "You're not dead yet." He said, "We don't mourn the living." So we don't mourn the living. And it was just such a beautiful thing because I feel, like I said, I am telling you that because it made me in the moment think, yeah, she's alive. I shouldn't look at her like she's dead, Don't treat somebody like they're dead. Because what is that? How does that help anybody? I'll have plenty of time when and if she dies to be able to mourn her, and it was just such a graceful thing. Like he was freaking perfect, Hilary. He was so perfect. I told I'm writing my book that you wrote a letter for, and in it I talk about that moment, and I talk about him because there was obviously a lot of horrible moments, but that moment was beautiful.
Yeah.
So it came down to, he basically told her, what do you want to do, Laura? Do you want to stay here? Or do you want to go home? We can't, it's your life, quality of life, what do you want to do? So my mom made a decision that she would spend what became the last 5 to 7 days of her life at home.
Well, that's the best place to be home and be surrounded by the people that you love. I mean, as someone who also lost a parent, and my dad, as you know, as I shared with you on GratitudeSpace Radio, it was a sudden passing, a massive heart attack. And there's really no right or wrong way to go, except the one way, which is being surrounded by love. From this experience, you wrote this beautiful letter to your mom, and it manifested into something greater. This gratitude space radio, your book that's coming out soon, this nonprofit, everything focuses on gratitude. And it's almost like your mom is with you in everything you're doing now, everything, So I want to talk about that. Let's go there, because you and I came together and came into each other's space when I learned about what you were doing, because I thought it was really beautiful. And then the story behind it just makes it even more empowering. But you have GratitudeSpace and launched your podcast as well. But what's the whole idea behind that? Like, where are you looking to go with this?
Well, the next part of my story was the part where I had the epiphany, and what what really changed my life is what happened after the funeral. Having my cousin read the letter at the funeral that I wrote my mother, and me sitting there listening the words come back, really had an impacting experience on me. And the following year, I decided that I wanted to do it again. So I wrote a letter to my father, and it had a very similar. It resonated very similarly. It was a similar experience. Actually, it was more intense because we'd lost my mother. It was much. It was a much more personal letter about appreciating, loving him, and how he just the realization of how blessed I felt that he was still moving around, that he would smile and laugh, and that the epiphany that he didn't die with her, which he could have easily had, because that does happen in this world. Partners die and other partners just, they give up life. And the fact that he's still just this loving man, which he is my, in that letter, I said something to the effect of, you've given me more time, love, and affection than anybody else on this planet. And I'm like, I was like, if I met somebody today and they were to care for me the rest of my life, they could never take your spot. You get that spot. That's it for me. That spot, you own it. Which it took losing my mother to realize that. Those are words because that's words directly because it made me think in a different light about my father. And we talked about that, obviously, the last remaining parent.
Yeah.
which is a really is a powerful thing to think about, and keep your head in the game and realize how fortunate you are that you do have that one parent left. It's a way of reflecting in gratitude. So I had this, the letter. I wrote my dad another letter. I had a great, another really amazing experience, and then I just had a thought in my head. I was like this little nugget of an idea. I was like, what if I could assist somebody else to have this experience? It's almost like, what if you went to a restaurant and you had like the very best sandwich you ever had in your life, right? What if I could make this sandwich for somebody? What if I could somehow get them to the restaurant, right? What if, if I could create this experience, right? How could I do that? So I started asking my questions, asking questions. How do you do that? How would I go about doing that? What would that look like? And I got to work on that idea. I was getting up early. I would go to the Starbucks. I had my laptop. I started working on a website. I started talking to everybody that basically I would meet about what I was doing in gratitude. It became my practice at the time. Honestly, that was my practice. I didn't have like a formal practice. My practice was me in this project of initiating gratitude. How do I do that? And just thinking about different ways. How do you express gratitude? How do you share it? How's it going to go out? How am I going to get people to do this? What should the website look like? What should the name be? All these different things. So after months of doing that, the site's, what I landed on was lettersofgratitude.org, which is going to be the name of the site. I had a launch date, and it was time to start collecting letters. So the cool thing is, Facebook has birthdays coming up, so I could look down there and go, okay, I saw that my friend Kate's birthday was coming up, and I asked her if she would write the first letter for the website. And, her birthday's coming up. It's, I think I probably asked, I asked her the week before, and I have this, she's going to be sending me this letter the following Friday on her birthday. And that's when I'm going to launch the website. And at the same time, just to give everybody kind of a perspective here, I decided that I would love to make this moment special. And I wanted to go somewhere I hadn't been, or be alone or something when this website launched. I wanted to make it, I didn't want it to be me sitting in my living room. I didn't want the everyday experience. And I talked to my mentor in Rick, and he was like, I can't afford to go rent a cabin. I just couldn't do that. I couldn't spend $200 or $300 to go somewhere. And he said to me, he said, Chris, well, there's a monastery that's in Bardstown, Kentucky, with actual monks, and they do retreats. So I took a pause, and I was like, you're telling me that there's a place with monks literally 45 minutes from here. And this is where I lived almost all my life, Hilary. And I'd never heard of it. It's called Abbey of Gethsemane. It's in Bardstown, Kentucky. And he said, yeah. And I go, okay. So I email a monk, and they email me back, and they explain to me that, one weekend is females, other weekend are males. Unfortunately, this coming weekend, two things happened. This coming weekend was males, and they had openings. So they're like, come on out. And it's a donation based type of thing. You can come out and have your own little retreat, And I was like, sweet, it's like game on. So the morning I'm supposed to go comes, and a literal blizzard hits Louisville. A blizzard, like a snowstorm, like the real deal, like the deal that doesn't happen here in Kentucky. And I wake up, and there's probably 6 inches of snow and ice. And I'm like, I'm on a mission, I'm setting out an experience, that's not going to stop me. So I get in my car, and what should have taken me like an hour takes me, 2.5 hours. And then the best way to describe the scene, I show up, I thought about this. It's like the end of The Shining, right? It's this big, vast space with these big buildings on a hill, all white, with vastness of no life, because it's just freezing. I get out, and all I can do is hear the snow underneath my feet and the wind, This desolate area is and I go in, I meet the monk that I was emailing with, and he shows me to my room. So I have my own room, which was pretty cool. It was my own room with a bathroom. And then because of circumstance, this becomes even more special. So I'm the only one that really showed up that day for the retreat because of the weather. So not only, I was wanting to be separated, but now I've, instead of there being, say,
10 or 20 people for their own retreats. I'm like the only person that showed up for the retreat that day. So I'm at this place, and it's basically just me. The monks have their own house. I think there may have been one other person that helped run the facility the first day. So I show up, and I've got this very unique experience going on. Mm-hmm. So now that I've painted the picture, I'll get to the reason I did all that. So the next day, I get Kate's letter, and I'm sitting on I'm sitting on the bed, and I've got my laptop, and the letter comes through, and I'm about ready to launch this website, and I read Kate's letter, and I get to the letter, and I'm crying, and I don't know why I'm crying, and it was the most mystical thing, I think. Physically with my body, I don't know how to explain it. I don't think I've ever met anybody else that said, "Well, I was crying," and then I didn't know why. Literally didn't know I was crying. So at this point, I'm have to go through a checklist, right? I got to go. I'm asking myself, what is going on here? What is going on in my body? What is happening here? So I go through a checklist. I'm like, well, I'm not crying because I know Kate. That's not the reason. I'm not crying because the letter's funny or it's beautifully written. These are all things that are true, but that's not why I'm crying. It hit me. And this is the moment that completely changed my life. And the reason I gave that whole story to get up to this moment. What hit me was this beautiful letter of love that will be in my book. So, obviously it's been online. People have read it. All this stuff, right? Everyone has people or things in their life that they love, and it's just sitting right there in their chest all the time. And most of the time, no one ever asks them. It's not a normal thing for somebody to come up and say, who in your life are you grateful for? And literally they want and want to be heard, But the amazing thing is when you ask that question, you open the door that allows it to come out. And if you allow it to come out, and there is something present like a camera or it's someone writing or a podcast, it at that point becomes art. It becomes gratitude art.
So this kind of manifested into GratitudeSpace. This became such a bigger thing. I mean, your website, which is all about sharing, encouraging, inspiring, that's GratitudeSpace. Then you have amazing people that are part of your journey, people that have really become a part of GratitudeSpace and that you call your friends of. And I'm very grateful to be one of those. But you have these empowering interviews, you have GratitudeSpace Radio, and now you're getting ready to launch a book. And that in itself is a task, but putting together all these beautiful stories, which again, so happy to be part of. Thank you for that. But,
thank you.
Want to share a little bit about that too. I mean, you have the Dear Gratitude and Anthology kind of sitting there getting ready to launch.
Oh yeah. It's, so, it's funny. 5 years ago, my mentor at the time, Thomas Kalopoulos, he's still my mentor. Thank goodness, man. I could speak a full hour about that, man, but we're going to stick on point here. He told me when I met him, he said, you need a book. And that was 5 years ago, right? You talk about from here to there, the story and that was before GratitudeSpace.com, I believe, was even launched. And I said, I know. Cause it's like I'd forgotten that. And he said, well, how about this? He said, why don't you sit down for the next 6 months and write 500 words every day? And I said, Thomas, I can do that. He's like, don't be, he's like, don't be tied into the outcome. Don't have like a format. He's like, just commit to the process. And I was like, and I get that, right? I mean, I get that. Mm-hmm. I just needed him to say it to me. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, man. I'm totally going to do it. And I did. I wrote for 6 months every day. Sometimes it was random stuff. Sometimes it got more focused, started thinking about my story. And everything just kind of came together where I had this big idea, and then it became smaller because I realized that people don't know me enough for me to write a memoir, which is fine. I'm okay with that. They need to date me first before they marry me. I feel like a memoir is like a commitment. It's a commit, right? 200 or 300 page word you think about just an individual you don't know. That's a commitment. So because I initially put all this material, I wrote so much, right? Because I do have a massive story, which I'm not going to get into because we only have so much time. I got to realize that I want to share my story, my core story, which I just did on your podcast, basically.
for the most part, so the book became this. It's like, okay, I'm going to share my story up to meeting, having that epiphany with Kate's letter. Okay. And then my editor and I were talking, and she's like, well, what if we initiated people to write in gratitude? They could write letters or essays. And because I had somebody else say that to me, right? Because I wouldn't have thought that, which is interesting, right? Well, I know why I didn't think that. She encouraged it, and I was like, well, this is brilliant, because the book becomes the process. The book is the process. Literally, it's doing what I want to be done. I want to encourage people to share gratitude, right? That's what I want all day long, right? And the book itself has done that, because we put the call out. You wrote. I had, 60 plus people. I have 60 plus people that wrote in gratitude from different countries, different worlds, even different languages, a few of them. 42,000 words, 75 pages of people just writing in gratitude because they were encouraged to. Mm-hmm. And that's, so it's called Dear Gratitude, an Anthology. And the beautiful thing is I get to share my story in the first, 20 pages, which is, that's you dating me. And then you get to read all these other people and how they've expressed and felt gratitude, because gratitude is not the same for everybody. Hearing different voices express gratitude is a very powerful thing. And that's, again, what the website does. That's what the letters did. My story, I hope it resonates with you. It might not at all. And that's okay. You know what I mean? But something in the book will resonate with you. It just has to, because it's not one note. It is literally an orchestra.
There's so many beautiful books out there that are very easy to digest because of that. And I've never really read one specifically on gratitude. I know there's one of my favorites is 14,000 Things to Be Happy About, which are just words, like things that happen in our life. It's so easy to kind of just take it in. You have the chicken soups for the soul, and just little stories can make a difference, because we're all connected in this world, So this is kind of like your chicken soup for gratitude.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I told my mentor about the idea for the book, he actually said those exact words. So, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow. So there you go. I mean, it makes perfect sense. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, Chris. And so let's move into one more area. And this is new. This is when you just shared this with me right before we started recording, but you are launching this nonprofit, or have launched, and you're moving into a new space. So what is the nonprofit all about? How are you bringing that together with GratitudeSpace and going forward?
Thank you. I'm so excited that this is the first podcast I've got to talk about this. I'm super excited. Exactly. I've had this idea for years, and I've experienced it on certain levels. What I'm going to share here. So it's something that's been developing and sitting inside of me, and it's just been ready, because I my full potential of initiating gratitude and getting, I don't know how to explain it. Oh, geez, it's so freaking good. So, okay. So the idea is this. It's called a GratitudeSpace pop-up. Okay. So to give people an image in their head, if you've ever, if you've gone to a wedding in the last 5 years, you may have seen a photo booth set up. Mm-hmm. So it's the exact same idea, except instead of someone taking your picture or having some machine take your picture, I'm there with 2 stools and a microphone, and I ask you who you're grateful for in your life. So the experience is you walk up, because it's an experience. You sit down. We say hi. I ask you, share somebody in your life you're grateful for. I get to create that moment, right? We talked about, I get to create the moment, right? It's right there. Mm-hmm. It's captured because it's being captured on video. And then when you step off, the amazing thing is, if you would like that video to land, you can, I've got a flow thing where you take a picture of it. It takes you to a form. So you let me know that you want this video. So the great thing is they step off, they fill out the form, and then within a week after it's posted, the video gets back to them, and then they can take that gift and give it to the person it was intended for. And that was just like a test. And that's, it's only going to get bigger. So my dad, the cool thing is my dad who had a photography business, he's partnered up with me to do this. The great thing is I'm doing this with my father.
I love that you're doing this with your dad. And in a way, it kind of circles us back to kind of paying homage to your mom. Like it's like a memory to your mom in a way, that your dad and you are doing this beautiful project together to allow and create the space for more gratitude to get out there in the world,
It just needs the oxygen,
Sure.
There's one other thing I wanted to share here, which is really powerful because you went back to my mother, and I just want to express this to people in the most sincere way. There's a thing called gratitude stacking, and it's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. So I want to give the metaphor here when I say stacking, where, we're going to go back to my experience, right? I wrote a letter. Okay. That's one thing happening. Okay. My mom read the letter. That was stacking. Okay. Now we could even go below here. We could say the love my mom gave me was the baseline. We could even say that was the baseline. Maybe the first stack was my mom loving me. Okay. Then I write this letter. Okay. That's one stack. She reads the letter. That's another stack. Out of that, my dad read the letter. That's its own stack. My sister read the letter. Its own stack. Her friends read the letter. That's her own stack, right? But let's take it further. The only reason we are talking right now, Hilary, is because of it. It's still stacking. When I did the thing the other day, it's still stacking. It's still happening. It continually expands. And the amazing thing is when people want to share what they're grateful for, and they want to be able to make it have something where it can stack, where you got to understand that when you're sharing gratitude, there's a pulse to it. It doesn't have to be a letter. It doesn't have to be physical, but there's a pulse. There's a ripple happening. Now, obviously with me, because I continue to collect, my ripple effect is I collect videos and all these things, and I put that out, and I don't know what happens, but that's a vibration. Each interview, each podcast, each video, like your videos, that we did, those are gratitude ripples, but they're all stacking from that letter.
Yeah, it's trickling down. I mean, it's permeating through everyone that touches it. I love that. It really is an empowering way to look at it too, because when we realize that each one of us is connected in some way, and what we can do with the good, and the same that we can do with the bad. So why not focus on the good, right?
Right. There's really big choices, and I left. I didn't get to the story, the part, I want to share this real quick. Dr. Williams, my mom's cancer doctor, the year later when I was working at the Starbucks on my website, he came in the same Starbucks and sat down with me, and he knew who I was. I didn't know who he was. And we came around to me knowing that I was sitting there with her cancer doctor, Dr. Williams. And I got to gift surprising my father with him later, which was going back to be able to surprise somebody with just something so amazing, But I'm mentioning this because I texted with Dr. Williams the other day, and I want to share this with you because I was thinking about him, and he's in my book, and I also I'm doing my best because I want to surprise my father with him again. So he. No, I'm like, dude, we can do a Zoom call, man. I'm like, come on, because that's like my dad's had like 3 big surprises in his life, and that was one of them. Like I got to create that, and geez, right? What a gift! It's a gift to myself, honestly. So I'm writing Dr. Williams the other day because I'm telling him I'm quoting him in the book about Monty Python, and You're Not Dead Yet, and he wrote me. He said it's hard to understand why such a beautiful life had to come to an end. I'm going right in the middle of our conversation here. And this is what I wrote him. I said, there really isn't any way to understand it. I just do my best to look on the bright side and be grateful that I got to be loved by her for 35 years. Obviously you could choose to focus on the bad because there's a lot of memory, that's the thing about gratitude. It has the power to engulf those memories when you're stuck in them, again, I know I know how fortunate I was that I had a mother that loved me for 35 years. I know I'm fortunate that I had a mother, or somebody cared about me, I understand how fortunate I was and am, because not everybody gets that. It's not a given that you're going to be born, it's not. And I know a lot of people weren't and haven't and won't be. But I got that gift, right? I received it. And when I think in the fact that she was a gift, and the reality is that no one lives forever. And these moments are precious because we don't live forever. If we could be here forever, life wouldn't be precious. That's just the way it is. So you got to go, okay, those moments are precious. She was precious. I got to experience that warmth, got to be in its glow for a really long time, so long that it's still stuck on me and it will always be on me. And I'm very grateful for that. And when I choose to focus on that, I don't get sad. In that moment, I'm not sad. I'm not, because I'm grateful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I almost can see you smiling right now.
Yeah, it's true.
I can see that. Yeah. I see it without even seeing you. There's an aura about you right now and how you're speaking. You're speaking in gratitude, and that in itself brings a smile. I could tell. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
I was going to ask you what your final words were, but I think you actually just shared them. Be in gratitude. I am the moment, everything, with the people around you. But if there's something else you'd like to share, of course, I'm holding space for you to do so.
If I wanted to share one last thing, I want to share one more thing, just an interesting concept. So, the beautiful thing about the book being called Dear Gratitude is because I opened up these categories for people to write, somebody wrote a letter called Dear Gratitude. And it was so beautiful and it made me cry. And it made me think in a different way. Okay. So it made me think of gratitude as something opposed to an idea, of writing. If somebody wants to think about what they're grateful for, they could write a Dear Gratitude letter. Think about actually thanking gratitude, like it's a person, like it's somebody who's with you, I just want to leave people with that thought. If you decide to sit down, and write a Dear Gratitude letter, it will change you. You will create a moment for yourself. You will realize things that you hadn't before, and you will appreciate your life more. So I think that's a good place for me to.
I think it is. I'm really grateful for you, Chris. I'm grateful for you coming into my life and sharing who you are and your story and being very authentic and very real. And I'm sure it's going to gravitate to a number of people who are listening. And you touch so many hearts just by being who you are. So thank you for touching mine and being a part of my life and sharing who you are. It really means a lot.
Thank you, Hilary. I loved having you on the podcast. I'm so glad that we connected, and I've connecting in gratitude and seeing the people, seeing our friendship and how it came about. This is a whole other reason to be grateful. And I appreciate you allowing me to being a voice on your podcast and lending your voice and your love on mine, and it means a lot. And Thank you for this time. Whatever happens after this is great. It gets to go out in the world. But honestly, this us being able to talk is where's all the gold was. This is, like I said, this is the cake. The icing is it other people get to listen to. And it's the same thing when I do the videos of people. The cake is the engagement. The icing is we get to put it out into the world. So thank you for giving me an enormous amount of cake this morning. And I starting my day with you is perfect. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, we should all eat cake.
Yes, have cake.
Have cake. Not let them eat cake. We won't do the Marie Antoinette line. Yeah, that's not positive. Let's just eat cake.
Yeah, eat cake.
All
cake. Yeah.
Bring on the cake, my friends. To find out more about Chris, Dear Gratitude, his nonprofit, and of course, GratitudeSpace Radio, just visit the Holistically Speaking podcast page for details. There's also a link to download a free self-havening demo with me if you listen to my conversation with Chris on his podcast. It's my gift to you in gratitude for listening and supporting us both. And while you're listening, if you're enjoying this podcast, consider subscribing. You can also rate and review the show, which is available on all podcast platforms. Your continued support helps me bring empowering conversations directly to you. Ready to transform your traumas to triumphs and work with me personally? Well, just drop me a line on my website or on my social media, hilaryrusso.com. I'm available on all different social medias. I'd love to support you on your journey to be kind to your mind. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Litbone Redding. Connection is everything, and it is why I'm here. So thank you for welcoming me into your space, or shall I say, your gratitude space. Until next time, be safe, be well, and don't forget to laugh.